You don't have health insurance? Then we can't treat you, shouted the receptionist. That's when the billionaire standing in line behind them stepped forward. These twins will be treated now, or this hospital will shut its doors tomorrow. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Please help them. They are burning up. Tiana Johnson said the words and they left her raw and small in the bright lobby. Her voice was thin. She held both babies close. One of the babies kicked and cried. The other was quiet and hot under his blanket. She had run from Dorchester with both babies in her arms. The street was cold and wet. Her coat was worn. Her feet hurt. Her heart felt like it might break. She had walked fast. She had not thought about anything else. She just went. Their mother had left months ago. Their grandmother was sick in bed. Tiana was only 13 years old. She worked in the afternoon at a small bakery to buy milk and diapers. She had learned to do many things for the twins. She had taken them to the pediatric clinic when she could. She had read lists and rules and tried to keep papers in a folder. Not all papers were there now. Some things were missing. The emergency lobby at St. Mark's was bright and empty. The fluorescent lights made the floor look white. The chairs were hard. A clock across the room moved its hands slowly. People were not in the lobby. A receptionist sat behind glass and looked at a computer. Tiana crossed the room and set the babies down on her knees. She rocked them. She felt how hot they were. She wiped their faces with a soft cloth. Her hands shook. "Please," she said again. "Please, they are getting worse." The receptionist looked up. Her voice was flat. "Do you have proof of insurance?" Tiana opened her mouth. She closed it. She held the babies closer. "I am their sister. I am their caregiver. I have some papers, but not all. They have a fever. They need a doctor now." The receptionist touched a keyboard. "We need proof of coverage to treat. Hospital policy is clear. If you cannot provide insurance or written approval, we cannot admit them." Tiana felt the words hit her like a wall. She put her face to one baby's head. He cried and pushed his face into her coat. The other one breathed fast. Heat burned against her cheeks. She had no time for forms. A man stood up from a bench across the room. He was in a navy suit. He was bald. He moved with calm steps. He walked to the desk. "What's the problem here?" the man asked. The receptionist did not look surprised. "We need proof or payment. Rules say so. We have to protect the hospital from unpaid bills." The man looked at Tiana. He looked at the babies. He said, "I will pay for whatever they need. Cover the cost tonight." Tiana turned her head. She had not seen this man before. She saw his face and felt something like hope. She did not trust it yet. She watched the receptionist. The receptionist sighed. "Payment does not change policy. We need documented coverage or written approval. Otherwise, we open the hospital to risks and audits." The man took out his phone and spoke in a low voice into it. He did not seem to yell. His tone was firm. "I want these children seen now. I will cover the bill. Call your manager. Call the executive team. We cannot leave these infants." A nurse in green scrubs came into the lobby. She stood near the man and listened. A young woman in a white coat walked by and stopped. She looked at the babies. Her face was tired and kind. "Let me see them," the woman said. She leaned close and put her hand on one baby's forehead. Her touch was quick and steady. She lifted her eyes to the receptionist. "We have a child with a high fever. We treat the child first, paperwork later." The receptionist's fingers did not stop moving. "I know the rules. I am following them." The woman took a step forward. "I am Dr. Laura Kim. I am on duty. These babies need a temperature check and fluids. They need to be seen in triage." Tiana looked up at Dr. Kim. She heard the doctor and breathed a small breath. She kept holding the babies. Her voice came out thin. "Please, they are so hot. My name is Tiana. They are Jalen and Malik. Tell me where they were fed last." "When were they fed?" Dr. Kim asked. She spoke softly and fast. She pulled a small thermometer from her pocket and put it to a baby's ear. The baby pushed and fussed. The thermometer beeped. The nurse looked at the thermometer and then at Dr. Kim. 104.5, she said. Tiana's hands tightened on the blanket. She had heard numbers like this before in clinics. She knew a fever like that could be bad for tiny babies. "Come with me," Dr. Kim said. She moved toward the triage door. "We will get them warm, lower the fever, check for dehydration." The receptionist held up a hand. "You cannot admit patients from triage without proof of coverage in certain cases. The board put this policy in place because of a debt issue. We have strict rules." Dr. Kim stopped. She looked at the receptionist and then at Tiana. "They are babies. We help them." The man in the navy suit watched this. He had listened while Tiana spoke. He had listened while the receptionist said no. His jaw set. "Who are you?" The receptionist asked the man. "My name is Marcus Bennett," he said. He spoke with a steady voice. "I am a supporter of this hospital. I will pay for their care tonight. I will also arrange a review of your policies if we need one. Treat the children now." The receptionist did not look pleased. "The policy is not mine. I am following orders. I cannot change it." Marcus looked at the receptionist and then at Dr. Kim and the nurse. He pulled his phone back to his ear and tapped the screen. "Call your supervisor," he said. "Call the executive on call. Get the person who can approve this. We will cover the bill. We must help them now." A guard walked closer to the group. He was tall and wore a badge. He watched quietly. He did not speak. He stood by the lobby door as if to hold the room open. Tiana rocked the baby and hummed a song she had learned at the bakery. "Shh, it's okay. I'm here," she whispered. The babies whined. One kept crying. The other was warming against her chest. Dr. Kim looked at Tiana. "Are you their legal guardian?" she asked. Tiana swallowed. She had worked through some custody steps in city offices. She had letters and a folder. She did not have everything. "I am their caregiver. Their mother left. My grandmother is sick. I do what I can." Dr. Kim nodded. "We will take care. Stay with them." Tiana's eyes filled with tears. She blinked hard and tried to breathe. She did not want to cry in front of the babies. She was afraid child services might come. She was afraid someone would say she could not do this, but she held the babies and listened. Marcus moved closer to the receptionist. His voice was low. "This is not just about payment," he said. "This is about saving lives. If the policy stops care for infants in need, we have to address it. We can pay for tonight's care and fund a policy review. We want the hospital to be safe for everyone." The receptionist typed again. Her fingers were quick. "I will call the on-call executive," she said. "They will decide. I must log the call." Marcus watched the phone. He watched the lobby. He looked at the babies. He said, "Call Susan Price. Call the CEO. Tell her these babies need care now." The receptionist chewed her lower lip. She picked up a phone and dialed. She left a message. Her voice sounded uncertain. "There is a case in the lobby. Infants. No proof of coverage. Someone is offering to pay. On-call executive, please call back." The night felt very long. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The clock kept moving its hands. Nurses stood nearby and whispered. They were scared to break rules but wanted to help. Dr. Kim checked a baby again and gave a small dose of fever medicine by mouth. She wrote a quick note and looked at the nurse. "We need a quick decision," she said. "They may need fluids. The babies are at risk." The guard looked at Marcus. He looked at Tiana. He looked at the receptionist. No one looked away. The lobby felt like a small room that held many people's worry. Marcus put his phone to his ear and scrolled through contacts. He pressed his thumb on a name and then let out a breath. He spoke clearly into the phone. "Susan, this is Marcus Bennett. I am at St. Mark's right now. There are 2 infants in the lobby with high fevers. They have no proof of coverage. I will fund their care tonight. We need approval to treat them now." His voice filled the small space between the desks and the chairs. People turned their heads. Tiana listened. Her hands felt cold. The babies hummed against her chest. A voice came from the phone in Marcus's ear. He listened. His face did not change. He tapped his fingers on his phone. The receptionist watched his face as if she were waiting for a key to turn. Tiana rocked the babies and looked at Marcus. She did not know this man. She had not asked for a stranger's help, but she needed help now. She looked at Dr. Kim and nodded. She tried to smile. "Please," she said again. "Please get them in." Marcus put his phone to his ear and spoke the name he had called. The lights in the lobby hummed. Outside, a car passed slowly by the hospital entrance. The sound reached the door like a small drum. Marcus listened to the response from his call. He kept talking. He kept his voice steady. He kept his eyes on the babies. He was making a choice that could change the night. He held the phone like it was a small tool to open a door. He did not know how the hospital would answer. He only knew the babies were burning and time was moving. Marcus kept the phone to his ear. He walked slowly along the edge of the lobby. His voice was calm and steady. "Susan, this is Marcus Bennett. I am at St. Mark's. There are 2 infants here with high fevers. They have no proof of coverage. I will pay for the care tonight. Please tell someone to approve treatment now." There was a pause on the line. Marcus waited. Then a voice answered, strained and careful. "Marcus, this is Susan Price," the voice said. "I need details. Who are they? What is the situation?" "A sister is here with them. She says she is their caregiver. The babies have very high fevers. One nurse said 104.5 degrees. We need to act now. I will cover the cost. We must treat them first." There was another silence. The phone line sounded thin. Marcus could hear other voices in Susan's office. He heard a paper shuffle. "Marcus, the hospital is under tight financial strain," Susan said finally. "Policy is clear. We need proof of insurance or written approval in many cases. We have rules because of audits and our debt." Marcus set his jaw. "This is an emergency. You can worry about audits later. You can take my payment and log it. Save the children first." Susan sighed. "I understand. I will call legal and finance. I need to loop in the executive team. Give me a few minutes." Marcus nodded, though she could not see him. He hung up the call and returned his phone to his pocket. He walked back to the desk. The receptionist had left the line open. Dr. Laura Kim stood near Tiana. She had taken off her jacket. Her scrubs were wrinkled. She still held the thermometer. She looked tired but focused. "We need to watch for dehydration," she told the nurse. "If their fevers stay high, they will get worse fast." The nurse nodded. Her name tag said Maria Lopez. Maria looked at Tiana with soft eyes. "Can I see any documentation?" Maria asked. "Even a letter or a clinic note helps." Tiana reached into a small bag and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. It was a clinic appointment note with a stamp. It was not full coverage papers. She handed it to Maria. "This is all I have," Tiana said. "Please." They will not stop crying. They feel so hot. Maria carefully read the paper and then looked at Dr. Kim. "It helps, but the policy still requires coverage for full admission in some cases," Maria said quietly. Marcus listened to the conversation. He walked up to Dr. Kim. "What does it take to get them triaged and seen now?" he asked. Dr. Kim did not look at Marcus at first. She focused on Tiana and the babies. She put a hand on a baby's leg and felt the small body. "We can start basic care right here," she said. "Antipyretic for fever. A quick IV if needed. But admission to a pediatric unit will require approval. Otherwise, we will do what we can in triage and keep monitoring." Marcus nodded. "Then do it. I will fund whatever you need now." Maria moved her eyes to the receptionist. "Please log a request for emergency exception. The child is a medical emergency. We need the on-call executive to sign." The receptionist picked up the phone and called. She spoke in a low voice. "We have 2 infants in the lobby. 104.5 degrees. The doctor is requesting an emergency exception. Please advise." In an office above the lobby, a man in a shirt and tie answered the phone. He was the chief financial officer. His name was Richard Hale. His voice sounded sharp on the line. "Who is asking for the exception?" he asked. "Dr. Kim is on site and requests immediate treatment," the receptionist said. "A donor is offering to cover the cost." Richard made a short sound. "We have to be careful. We are under audit risk. We have a policy for a reason. If we make exceptions without proper documentation, auditors will flag it. We cannot keep using hospital funds for non-covered care." Back in the lobby, Marcus heard Richard's words through the open line. His face tightened. "Richard," Marcus said when he saw the CFO on a nearby monitor. "This is Marcus Bennett. You do not have to use hospital funds. I will pay. This is about saving children's lives." There was a long pause. Richard's eyes were hard. "Marcus, I appreciate the offer, but if the hospital appears to admit patients without coverage, that can trigger audits and penalties. The board has been strict on this. We cannot make ad hoc exceptions. We need documented approval from the executive team." Dr. Kim turned to Tiana. "Stay with them," she said. "We will give them antipyretic now. The nurse will check hydration." Maria warmed a small cup of medicine. She held it carefully. Tiana leaned over and gave both babies small doses. They cried and pulled close. Dr. Kim examined their mouths and skin. "They are warm. They are listless. We will need to monitor closely," Dr. Kim said. "If they do not respond, they will need fluids in a controlled setting." Marcus called out, "Then make the call you need. Let the executive team decide. Call Susan. Tell her I will front the bill. I will also ask for a review of policy after tonight." Maria brought a small thermometer back. She watched the digital readout. Her eyes widened. "The fever is not coming down much," she said. "We will keep them here and monitor, but this cannot be a long fight in the lobby." Marcus stepped to the side and dialed another number. He pressed a name that made his voice lower, as if the sound of the name could move things. "Elena Torres," he said into the phone. "Elena, are you awake?" A voice answered with surprise. "Marcus, it is late. What is wrong?" "There are 2 infants in St. Mark's lobby," Marcus said. "They need care, and we are hitting policy walls. I need you on the board to push for approval to admit them tonight." There was a quiet moment. "I will come in," Elena said. "Tell me where. Stay on scene with the children." Marcus hung up with Elena and called a reporter. He called David Reed at the local paper. David answered after a few rings. "Marcus? At this hour?" David said. "There are 2 infants being denied full treatment because of insurance rules," Marcus said. "We need someone to cover this. Please come to St. Mark's." David's voice changed. "I will be there in 20 minutes." Tiana watched the phone calls. Her hands trembled when she touched the babies. She felt like she was standing on a small ledge. She did not want to fall. A car pulled up at the hospital door. 2 people got out and walked inside. One of them had a camera and a press badge. A few more people gathered by the entrance. A woman with a notepad came in and asked the receptionist questions. "Is this about the infants in the lobby?" she asked. "We heard someone was asking for emergency care." The lobby filled with a small crowd of worried faces. Staff members spoke in low voices. Some nurses looked scared. They knew the rules. They also knew the babies could get worse. Marcus turned to Susan on the phone again. "If you do not approve this now, I will have to go public. I will tell the city and the reporters what is happening. I do not want to do that. I want us to fix this inside, but the babies must get care." Susan's voice was tight. "Marcus, the board will not like this. We have to protect the hospital's financial standing. If this goes public, donors will react. Creditors may warn us. I need to call the board. I will call legal too." Marcus raised his hand. "Call them now." Susan started to make calls. In the boardroom, phones started to ring. The on-call legal counsel answered and listened to a quick summary. "We have to consider liability and audit risk," the lawyer said. "We cannot admit patients without coverage unless there is a clear emergency exception. We need the executive team to sign." A board member's phone lit up. Several trustees woke to a late call. Some answered, some did not. Back in the lobby, Dr. Kim kept checking the babies. She noted how they were breathing and how their skin felt. Her voice was calm but urgent. "How long has she been the primary caregiver?" Dr. Kim asked Tiana. "About 6 months," Tiana said. "I had to step in when my mother got sick. I have some letters. I am trying to get more official papers. I can show you everything I have." Dr. Kim nodded. "We will help with the social work team. Right now, we need to keep them stable." A man in a suit stood near the door. He listened to the phones and watched the crowd. He was one of the hospital trustees who had been called. He spoke to a colleague quietly, then walked toward the lobby. The trustee looked at Marcus and then at the babies. He said, "We need to balance care and finances. But this looks serious. I will go upstairs and speak to the CEO." Marcus let out a breath he had not known he held. He did not smile. He did not relax. He only watched. Outside, 2 reporters texted lines about the scene. The story began to move on social feeds. A few neighbors started to walk toward the hospital doors. Someone used a phone camera and sent a short video that showed Tiana holding the babies. The clip spread fast. Inside, Richard in finance typed a note and sent it to the chief counsel and the board. He wrote that making an exception could invite audit questions. He added that they would need written payment documentation and a record of a signed executive exception. He asked for a board member to join the call. Marcus heard the word board and spoke again. "Elena, I need you to call the board. Tell them to approve an exception for tonight. Tell Susan she can log the payments and that we will fund an external review." Elena arrived minutes later. She walked into the bright lobby. Her coat was thin. Her voice was steady. "Susan," she said loud enough for the phone line to catch. "I back Marcus. Approve the emergency exception. We can sort finances in the morning." Susan's voice answered from the phone. "Elena, this is not a simple decision. We have legal obligations." "These are infants," Elena said. "We must do what is right now." Another trustee who had answered his phone walked in and stood near Elena. He looked at the babies and then at the crowd. "We will meet," he said. "We will call a board session. This needs to be decided fast." David Reed walked up with a small recorder. "Ms. Johnson," he said softly to Tiana, "may I ask a few questions? I want to tell your story." Tiana looked at Marcus. Marcus shook his head. "No names now," he said to the reporter. "Not yet." David nodded and put his recorder away. He raised his eyes to the lobby. "This will get attention," he said. The lobby felt heavy and small at the same time. People were on their phones. The hospital staff moved with careful steps between the chairs. A small team gathered in the corridor. They were calling executives and board members. The night was spreading outward in calls and texts and short messages. Upstairs, Susan gathered legal and finance on a call. She listened to arguments about audits and donors and human need. The choices were not easy. The hospital had debt. It had rules it had followed for months. Those rules now touched 2 burning little bodies in the lobby. Downstairs, Dr. Kim sat with Tiana and the babies. Nurse Maria checked the baby's vitals every few minutes. She wrote notes in a small chart. Her hands were steady, but her eyes looked worried. Marcus watched the clock as if it had become an enemy. He made another call to a friend on the executive team. He asked for one more sign-off. The phones kept ringing. The lobby kept waiting. Outside, more people near the hospital doors looked in. The camera lights blinked. Someone whispered that a news crew had called the hospital to confirm a story. The night was no longer private. The hospital leaders upstairs gathered to prepare a meeting. They would decide whether to allow care now and how to explain it. The clock moved toward whatever decision they would make. Reporters were arriving. The story was growing louder. The hospital had to choose. Susan listened to the line click and then spoke in a tight voice. "I will call legal and finance. Do not make any public statements yet." Marcus stood in the lobby and watched the babies. He heard Dr. Laura Kim say, "We need to lower the fever now." He nodded at the doctor. "Then do what you need," Marcus said. "I will cover the cost tonight. I will also fund a review of the policy so this does not happen again." There was a pause on the phone upstairs. Susan took a breath. "Marcus, any public action could hurt the hospital financially. We are under pressure. I need written approval and a signed payment arrangement to admit patients without coverage." Marcus looked at Dr. Kim and then at Tiana. He felt a quick anger. "Write whatever you need. I will sign it. I want the hospital to be safe. If rules stop care for sick infants, the rules must change. Tonight, send them to triage." Upstairs, the chief financial officer, Richard Hale, set his phone down and rubbed his forehead. He opened a document on his laptop and spoke into the line. "If we admit patients without clear coverage, auditors will flag the hospital. Donors may react. We cannot do this lightly." Elena Torres, who had just come in from the cold, leaned toward the line speaker. "So, what do you propose, Richard?" "The children are in the lobby. We need a signed exception from the executive team," Richard said. "We need payment in writing or an internal approval. Otherwise, the auditors will find a pattern." Marcus heard the words and answered calmly. "I will put the funds in escrow. Put a clear record in the books. We will pay for the care and then launch an independent audit. Show me the documents you need." The legal counsel, calling from her home, was on the line now. "We have to document the decision carefully. If we make an exception, we must record the medical reason and approve the payment. Otherwise, there may be liability and audit findings." Dr. Kim stood at the baby's side. She had taken vitals, and she kept noting things on a small pad. Her voice was low and direct. "They respond to antipyretic, but slowly. We need to watch for dehydration. The older twin is not feeding well. The younger twin is drowsy." Nurse Maria Lopez had already given a dose of fever medicine. She sat on a low stool and wrote quickly. Maria looked tired. Her hands were steady. She did not like breaking rules. She also did not like watching babies suffer. "We have to do what we can while they are here," Maria said to Dr. Kim. "If the executive team will not approve admission, we can still start basic care. Monitor the temperatures and give fluids if needed." Dr. Kim nodded. "Get me supplies. I will set up a small fluid line if the babies cannot take by mouth. We can stabilize them in triage for a short time." Tiana watched. Her voice was small. "Will they be okay? Will someone stay with them?" Dr. Kim put her hand on Tiana's shoulder. "We will stay with them. We will do everything we can right now." Marcus turned toward a woman in a dark coat who had been watching. She introduced herself. "My name is Elena Torres. I am on the board. I will help push for approval." Elena spoke directly into her phone. "Susan, I am here. Authorize the exception. We will document the payment. We will call a review tomorrow. Do not delay the children." There was a long pause. Finally, Susan said, "Fine. Allow triage care, but document everything. Get the written payment agreement ready and send it to me in the morning. No public statement now." Marcus felt the tension shift a degree. It was not a full solution, but it was movement. Dr. Kim and Maria kept working. They gave the babies small doses of medicine. They checked breathing and color. They weighed the small bodies and recorded details in a simple chart. Outside, a reporter spoke to a camera. David Reed had arrived. He stood with his phone pointed at the lobby and asked a few quiet questions. Marcus kept saying no names. He wanted the medical team to work without publicity first. "Can we get the children into the pediatric unit now?" Marcus asked again. Dr. Kim shook her head. Not until we have formal admission approval. We can keep them in triage and do urgent care here. A nurse stepped out and whispered to Maria, "If they get worse, we will need admission fast." Maria looked at Tiana. "Do you have any legal papers that say you are caregiver?" Tiana opened her small bag and pulled out a folded clinic form and a note from a social worker. "I am trying to get more official papers," she said. "My grandmother is sick. I have been the one taking care of them." A social worker arrived. Her name was Angela Foster. She sat on a small chair next to Tiana and unfolded a pen and a paper form. "Hello, Tiana," Angela said softly. "My name is Angela. I work with the hospital. I am here to help with custody and social support. Will you talk to me about the babies?" Tiana answered in a low voice. "Yes, I am their sister. Their mother left months ago. I have some papers, but I am not full legal guardian." Angela took notes. "We can help with that. For now, we will document that you are their primary caregiver. That will help us in the records. We will also connect you with child services if needed for legal support." Tiana looked at Angela and then at Dr. Kim. She breathed a little easier. Marcus spoke to his phone. He called a lawyer he trusted. The lawyer's name was James Cole. James answered after a short ring. "James," Marcus said, "I need legal help here. I am offering to fund the care for 2 infants at St. Mark's. The hospital needs to document everything, and we will launch an independent review. Help me structure the payment and make sure the hospital cannot hide this." James's voice was quick. "Do you want me to set up an escrow and draft an agreement? We need to be clear on the terms. Also, if the hospital resists, we can prepare a public statement and a legal letter." Marcus told him to prepare the documents and be ready. He did not want to make threats yet. He wanted the babies taken care of now and the system fixed later. Inside the lobby, Maria checked the temperatures again. The thermometer read 104.5 degrees. Maria's face tightened. "The fevers are not falling as much as I hoped," she said. Dr. Kim looked at the babies and felt the small chests rise. "We will start a small IV if they do not improve in the next hour," she said. "We need to be ready to admit if they do not respond." A night nurse volunteered to stay. Her name was Sarah. She had been finishing a shift, but she stayed to help. "I will stay with them," Sarah said. "I will watch the monitors and call if anything changes." Tiana took a breath and let a single tear fall. She sang to the babies in a soft voice. "Shh. It is okay. I am here." Her voice was calm and thin. Dr. Kim watched her and then whispered, "You are doing well. Keep doing that." Marcus stood near the chair where Tiana sat. He felt a tightness in his chest. He had lost family when care came too late. That history pushed him forward now. But he also knew that pushing too hard could close doors. He tried to give clear and calm orders. "Get the agreement ready," he said to James. "Get the bank ready for a deposit. Prepare a press line but do not release it. I want the hospital to accept our terms and allow admission if needed." James repeated the plan. "I will draft the escrow agreement now. We will make the payment transparent. We will also prepare for any board resistance." Elena walked to the triage window and called the executive team again. "This is Elena Torres," she said. "We have board support for an exception tonight. Please document the approval and allow the babies into the unit if they need it." There was a soft murmur of phones and low voices. Upstairs, a few board members had gathered on a call. Some agreed that care must come first. Others worried about donors and audits. The choice was heavy. In the lobby, the babies cried less. They drank small amounts and their breathing seemed steady. But the fever had not dropped enough. Maria checked them again and wrote notes. "We will keep watching," she said. "If they get worse, we will call for immediate admission." Marcus watched the clock. He felt tired, but he would not leave. He watched the small team work, and he watched Tiana hold the babies as if her life depended on it. He knew decisions had to be made now that would affect more people than the 3 in the lobby. A staff member whispered that a social post had gone up with a short clip from the lobby. It had a few hundred views already. The story was starting to move in the city. Marcus looked at Elena, at Dr. Kim, and at Tiana. "We will do the care we can now. We will fund tonight. You keep the records. Tomorrow we will take further steps." Tiana nodded. She did not have many words. She kept the babies close. She watched the faces around her and tried to trust them. The lobby slowly filled with people who wanted to help. The medical team did not stop working. Maria and Sarah kept checking vitals. Dr. Kim planned the next steps. Marcus kept making calls. Elena kept pushing the executives upstairs. The night stretched on. The babies' fevers remained high. The mood in the hospital was a mix of tension and small acts of care. The staff had taken the first steps. The harder decisions still waited. The babies slept for a small time, their breathing quiet and shaky. The team did not leave them. They checked the monitors and the charts. They gave more fluids and kept the fever medicine on schedule. The night held a slow pressure. Upstairs, phones kept ringing. The hospital executives met in a small room. Susan Price sat at the head of a long table. Her face looked tired. She listened as Richard Hale, the chief financial officer, spoke. "We are tight," Richard said. "Our line of credit is close to its limit. We cut costs this year. We moved some funds to cover payroll and urgent bills." A trustee on the call asked a question. "Moved funds where?" Richard rubbed his eyes. He looked at the table and then back to the phone. "From accounts meant for patient support into general operations," he said. "It was to keep us afloat this quarter. It was temporary, but the auditors will not like it if they find a pattern." Elena Torres, who had come down to the lobby earlier, pressed her hand to the phone. "This is serious," she said. "If this is true, we must fix it and tell the community. But first, the children in the lobby need care." A conservative trustee named Harold Dunn spoke next. His voice was blunt. "If we admit a pattern of making exceptions, we will drown in audits. Donors will leave. Creditors will act. Marcus Bennett has no right to push this public." Marcus listened on a call from the lobby. He felt tension in his chest. He had called friends and board members to support an emergency exception. Now he heard the warnings about money and donors. He also heard anger in some voices. "Harold," Marcus said into the phone, "these are infants. This is not politics. We must admit them. We will fund tonight's care. We will fund an audit. I am not asking for secrets. I am asking for safety." Harold's voice did not change. "We will not accept public pressure. This hospital has rules for a reason. You are crossing a line." Marcus closed his eyes. He did not lower his voice. "If the hospital refuses to help sick babies because of paperwork, then I will make the choices public. I will fund a full independent review. I will not hide the results. The city deserves to know." The word public made many on the call shift. Susan's face tightened. She looked between Richard and the legal counsel on speaker. In the lobby, nurses whispered. Maria Lopez stood near Dr. Laura Kim. Maria had worked at St. Mark's for years. She knew many patients. She also feared the hospital losing donors. She held both concerns in her hands. "If this goes out, donors may pull funding from programs that help our patients," Maria said quietly. "We work with fragile budgets every day," Dr. Kim answered softly. "We also have a duty to save lives. The twins are at risk. We must do everything to keep them safe." Outside the hospital doors, a small group had gathered. David Reed from the local paper had posted a short report. A few people from the neighborhood came with signs. They stood on the sidewalk and called for care. Their voices carried in low sentences. A call came into the hospital from one of the major donors. The donor's voice was crisp. "We are hearing about this issue," the donor said. "If the hospital allows political interference or public scandal, we will rethink our upcoming gift. We cannot fund a place that draws negative attention." Richard pulled his jacket tighter and answered, "We are handling it. We are making a decision." Another voice interrupted. "If this goes public, our creditor may reduce the line of credit. That will hit operations hard," said a banking representative on a separate call to Richard. "We must see governance stability." Marcus heard the calls and the threats. His jaw set. He pressed his phone to his ear and spoke to a friend on the board. "Tell them they can call me," Marcus said. "I will show the funds for tonight. I will back an independent review, but the hospital must admit the babies now." Elena stood and walked to the triage curtain. She looked into the small room where the babies were watched. She watched Tiana holding the babies. Tiana's face was pale but steady. The social worker Angela sat close by with paperwork. A child welfare worker called the hospital number. She asked to speak with a social worker about custody. Angela answered the call and then stepped back to the family. "Tiana," Angela said softly, "Child Services wants to confirm who has legal guardianship. They are concerned and they are asking for information so they can make a plan that keeps the children safe." Tiana's hands tightened on a blanket. "I am their sister," she said. "I have been their caregiver for months. I tried to get legal papers, but my grandmother is sick. I do what I can." Angela held Tiana's hands. "We will help you with the legal steps. For now, we will note you as the primary caregiver in the record. Child Services may ask for a formal meeting in the morning. We will attend with you." Tiana looked at Angela and then at Dr. Kim. She took a small breath. "Will they take the babies away?" she asked. Angela shook her head. "They want to make sure the babies are safe. They will not take action without talking to you. We will support you." Tiana felt small relief. She let her tears fall quietly and then wiped them away. The babies slept again in a shallow rest. Maria checked their vitals and scribbled notes. Each note was a small record of the night. In a hospital office, a trustee named Daniel Reed, not related to the reporter, called a meeting of a small group of board members. Some were ready to back Marcus. Some worried about donors and creditors. The room filled with voices. "We must decide now whether to allow admission if needed and whether to accept an independent review," Elena said. "If we do not act, we risk harm to patients and to our reputation. If we act and document it, we may weather the audit." Harold Dunn interrupted. "This will cause a crisis. Donors will not stand for a public challenge. We will lose funding. We must protect the institution." Daniel looked at the papers on the table. "We have 3 choices. Admit now and accept review. Admit now and keep review private. Or follow policy strictly and risk harm. We cannot simply ignore the medical team." The phones rang. Some board members answered donors and creditors on the line. Voices grew louder in the small room. The choice pressed on everyone. Back in the lobby, David Reed published a longer story. He quoted a staff nurse who asked to remain anonymous. He noted that 2 infants had been in the lobby and that a donor offered to pay. The piece asked why the hospital had strict intake rules. The story moved in messages and made the hospital watch the public. Marcus read the post and felt the weight of what he might have to do. He had hoped to keep things quiet while fixing the problem. Now the city watched. He called his lawyer, James Cole. "If they deny admission, we will go public with a full account of the hospital's finances," Marcus said. "I do not want to destroy the hospital. I want change, but I will not let these babies be at risk." James answered carefully. "You must be ready to back public claims with evidence. We can prepare a legal path that forces transparency if needed. But step 1 is to keep the infants safe." In the hallways, nurses whispered about what they could do if the board refused. Some talked about going to the press. Maria thought about giving a written account of what happened tonight. "I worry about losing my job," she told Dr. Kim. "But I cannot sit by if the infants need more than triage." Dr. Kim nodded. "We will document everything. If we do what is right and record it, we will protect ourselves." A camera crew arrived and set up near the doors. People from the street filmed with phones. The small crowd grew. The sound of voices outside became part of the hospital hum. The board members upstairs finally agreed to a special in-person session. They planned to meet at midnight for a vote. The meeting time settled the shape of the night. It made the choice real. "Midnight," Susan said. "We will gather at midnight to vote on an emergency policy exception and on a formal independent review." Marcus heard the time and felt his pulse move. He had been pushing all night. He knew a vote could split the board. He also knew the babies were still at risk. He watched the monitors. He watched Tiana breathe. As the meeting time moved closer, the babies' fevers stayed high. Maria checked again. "They are still at 104 degrees, she said. "We will need to act if they do not drop." Dr. Kim wrote a formal note and signed it. She wrote that the infants required observation in a pediatric unit if their fevers did not respond. She handed the note to the nurse to file with the request for exception. Marcus stood with Elena near the triage curtain. He spoke in a low voice. "If the board refuses at midnight, we will have to take the next step publicly. I will not let the hospital hide practices that hurt patients." Elena looked at him and then at Tiana. "We will do all we can," she said. "We will push for what is right." Outside, community members planned to stay near the entrance. Some called city council members, some called legal aid. David Reed wrote a longer piece that named the hospital and reported the basic facts. The story moved in the city and made more people watch. Inside, the staff prepared for the vote. Nurses gathered notes. Dr. Kim wrote more medical records. Marcus made one more call to his lawyer and to a friend on the board. He felt pressure from donors and creditors. He felt the hope that the board would choose life. The hospital held its breath for the midnight vote. The babies slept in the dim light. Tiana watched them with tired and faithful eyes. The leaders upstairs faced a choice that could change the hospital and change lives. The night was still long, and the decision was near. The board meeting ran longer than anyone had planned. Voices rose and fell in the conference room above the lobby. Down below, the babies slept for a short time, but the monitors still showed high temperatures. The night felt thinner. It moved toward 2 o'clock in the morning. Susan Price spoke first in the boardroom. Her voice was firm but tired. "We must consider the hospital's financial stability," she said. "If we admit patients without proof of coverage, our auditors could find irregularities. Donors may pull gifts. Creditors may change terms." Richard Hale, the chief financial officer, pushed his glasses up. His voice was careful. "The hospital is under stress. We balanced payroll and bills this quarter by moving some money around. I thought it was temporary. The auditors would flag those transfers. If we change policy now without clear documentation, we risk fines and deeper review." A young board member, Elena Torres, spoke up. "Richard, people are here tonight because infants need care. We can document this. We can accept funding for tonight and start an independent review tomorrow. The priority should be the children." Harold Dunn, a longtime trustee, narrowed his eyes. "If we accept a pattern of special exceptions, we open the door to audits and loss of donor trust. Marcus Bennett is strong and well known, but we cannot let public pressure rewrite our rules." Marcus, who had come upstairs for the meeting, set his hands on the table and said, "This is not public pressure. These are infants. I will fund tonight's care. I will pay for an independent audit. Show me the records you need. Let the doctors do their jobs." Susan looked at him. "If we open financial records to a private audit, we must be careful about donor confidentiality and legal restrictions. You can fund care, but we need a legal agreement and board approval for any audit." Marcus answered, "I will sign whatever legal document you need. I will put the funds in escrow and hire an independent firm. I will not hide the results. The city needs to know how decisions were made that might have hurt patients. Richard's face changed. He had been defensive all night. Now his voice slowed. If you plan to make the audit public, that could expose internal decisions and donor names. We must be careful. Elena leaned forward. If the records show we shifted funds away from patient services, then we must fix that. The community must hear the truth. The legal counsel on the call spoke up. We need to draft agreements that control scope and confidentiality. But if Mr. Bennett makes public statements, that will change legal strategy. The board must decide how transparent it will be. There was a long silence. Phones pinged with messages. Upstairs, the hospital held its breath. Back in the lobby, Dr. Laura Kim watched the twins. One baby had opened his eyes and cried weakly. The other slept with his small chest rising and falling. Nurse Maria Lopez checked the charts again. 104 degrees, Maria said softly. The medicines help a little, but the fevers keep returning. One of them is not feeding well. He is showing early signs of dehydration. Tiana held the babies and rocked them slowly. Her face was pale. Her small hands trembled a little. Angela Foster, the social worker, sat beside her with a clipboard. "We will stay with you," Angela said. "We will do the paperwork you need. We will help with child services so they know you are the caregiver." Tiana nodded. "I don't want them to take the babies. I just want them to be safe," she said. Her voice went thin. In the boardroom, Richard swallowed and then spoke in a quieter tone. "I did something I should have told the board about. We moved funds from a patient support account into the operating account to meet payroll and vendor bills. I thought it would be short. I did not want to alarm trustees. Now I see that could cause audits to question patient care budgets. I am sorry I did not disclose it sooner." The room went very still. Elena covered her mouth with her hand. Harold looked angry. Susan leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes for a moment. "Richard, you should have raised this at the last board meeting," Susan said. "We depend on accurate reporting." Richard looked down. "I know. I made a judgment call to keep the hospital open. I did not anticipate tonight. I did not mean to put patients at risk." Marcus's voice cut across the room. "If funds were shifted away from patient services and that kept children from being admitted, that is not just finance. That is policy that harms people. I am ready to fund the care tonight and to fund an independent audit. The public should know the truth if the board cannot act to protect infants." Harold's face hardened. "You are threatening the hospital with public exposure." Marcus looked him straight in the eye. "I am not threatening. I am using my resources for transparency. If the board will not act to fix this, I will make sure the city learns what happened. I will pay for the audit and publish the results." The legal counsel warned, "If you plan to publish financial records, you must be sure you can prove the findings. Publishing unproven claims can bring legal trouble." Marcus answered, "I will fund a professional independent firm. I will not publish until I have evidence, but I will not let the issue stay hidden." Susan rubbed her temples. "We must face both risks. If we admit the infants now and document everything, we can begin a review with legal oversight. If trustees agree to an independent audit, we can manage the process." A trustee who had been quiet all night, Daniel Reed, cleared his throat. "I will support admitting the infants and a full independent audit. We will document every step. We will accept the results and follow them. If that means leadership changes, we will act." There were murmurs around the table. Some trustees worried about donors, some worried about patient safety. Harold stood up. "If we take this path, donors will be upset. We need to warn them and hold a plan for operations." Elena said, "We will notify donors and creditors with facts. We will propose a plan to restore funds to patient services. We need to do the right thing now." Susan looked at the board and then at Marcus. "All right," she said. "We will vote. We will vote on 2 motions. 1. Admit the infants now and allow the medical team to treat them. 2. Accept a fully independent audit, funded by Mr. Bennett with public reporting if issues are found. We will document everything in writing." The vote began. The voices were low as each trustee stated aye or no. Marcus stood by the wall and watched the lobby through a small window. He felt the heat of the night press his chest. When the votes were counted, the result was close. A slim majority supported admitting the infants and approving the audit. The board had split, but the motion passed. A few trustees looked angry. Harold folded his arms and left the room. Others stayed to help write the formal agreements. Susan's face was pale, but she accepted the vote. "We will make sure the legal agreements are in place immediately," she said. "Notify the on-call staff to prepare admission if needed." Marcus exhaled slowly. He did not smile. He only felt the weight of what would come next. "Thank you," he said. "Now let the children get the care they need." Back in the lobby, Doctor, Kim heard the new order call through. A nurse pushed a small gurney and a team formed quickly. "We are moving them to the pediatric unit," the nurse said. "We have admission approval." Tiana stood up when she heard. Her hands were steady as she folded the blanket around the babies. Sarah, the night nurse who had stayed, helped lift one baby. Maria carried the other. They walked down the corridor with careful, quick steps. Tiana's knees felt weak, but she held on. "Are they going to be okay?" she asked Dr. Kim as they moved. Dr. Kim squeezed her shoulder. "They will be watched. We will place small IVs if they need them. We will give fluids and monitor for dehydration. We will keep you close. You can stay with them." The elevator doors closed and carried the group up. Outside the emergency doors, cameras flashed, and a reporter's voice asked questions. Marcus stood near the doors and listened to the sounds. He watched the hospital staff carry the babies to a pediatric room. In the pediatric unit, a small room waited with warm lights and soft machines. The team set the babies down. Dr. Kim checked their weight and started small IVs to deliver fluids. The fevers were still high, but the team worked with calm, steady hands. "We will give them antibiotics and fluids, keep their temperatures down, and monitor their labs," Dr. Kim said to the team. "We will notify social work and document everything for the board and for the audit." Tiana sat in a small chair beside the crib. She held the baby's hand. Her eyes were heavy with sleep, but bright with relief. "I will not leave them," she whispered. "I will be here." Angela sat close with a clipboard and a pen. "We will start the guardianship paperwork in the morning," she said. "We will make sure you have legal support. We will help you with school and work information so you can keep caring for them." Downstairs, the lobby felt different. The crowd had thinned out. The camera crew packed their equipment. David Reed had recorded notes and left his card with Marcus. People outside the hospital had seen the images and spread the news. The city would be awake in a few hours with the story. Upstairs, the legal counsel started drafting the documents that would allow Marcus's payment to be recorded and set the terms for the independent audit. Richard opened the accounting software and began to make the entries that should have been made earlier. He worked with a new honesty that had become urgent. Marcus sat alone in a small corner of the lobby. He watched Tiana through the glass and thought of his niece who had died years before when care arrived too late. He touched his phone and sent a message to his lawyer. "Start the audit now. Get the firm ready. Do not delay." His phone buzzed with messages from trustees and from donors. Some were angry. Some were relieved. Marcus did not answer yet. He only watched the babies sleep in the pediatric room. The vote had changed the night. The hospital had admitted the infants. It had agreed to an independent audit. The decision would bring scrutiny and trouble. It would also bring care for 2 small lives. In the hush of the early morning, people who had argued all night waited to see what would come next. The pediatric room was quiet except for small beeps from the monitors. The babies slept under soft lights. A nurse checked an IV and then looked at Dr. Laura Kim. Their fevers have fallen, she said. Jalen is down to 102 degrees. Malik is 101.5 degrees. That is a good sign. Dr. Kim smiled once, then turned serious. Keep the antipyretic on schedule. Watch intake. If they do not feed well, we will continue fluids. Call me if either shows a change. Tiana sat in the chair beside the crib. She had not slept. Her eyes were heavy and red. She held one tiny hand and watched the babies breathe. Are they going to be okay? She asked quietly. Dr. Kim sat down beside her. They are stronger now, she said. We will keep working. You can stay with them. Social work will help you with the paperwork. Angela Foster, the social worker, had a small stack of forms. She set them on the table and spoke slowly. Tiana, I will help you file for temporary guardianship, Angela said. It will protect the babies while we get medical records and legal papers. This hospital will support you with documentation. Tiana reached out and gripped Angela's hand. Will they take my brothers away? She asked. No, Angela answered. We will make sure you get legal help. We will ask child services to work with you so the babies stay safe. For now, focus on feeding and resting. Downstairs, Marcus Bennett stood in the lobby and watched the activity on a small monitor that showed the pediatric corridor. He had not moved from the hospital since the vote. He felt tired but steady. He took out his phone and called his lawyer, James Cole. Start the escrow agreement, he said. Make sure funds go directly to the hospital for these children's care and records for the audit. I want clear terms and a public reporting plan if the audit finds problems. James replied, I will draft the agreement. I will also reach out to an independent firm that can do a full review. We will require access to accounting, intake records, and board minutes. Are you ready to make the engagement public if needed? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Yes. I will fund the audit, and I will not ask for secrecy. I want transparency. Within hours, an independent review team arrived at St. Mark's. They introduced themselves to Susan Price and to the legal counsel. The team lead was a woman named Dr. Rebecca Cole from an accounting firm in Boston. She wore a simple suit and carried a folder of documents. Good morning, Dr. Cole said. We will need access to accounting ledgers, intake records, and board minutes for the last 2 years. We will interview staff who handle patient intake and finance. We will start with a document request and then arrange interviews. Susan's face was tense. We will cooperate, she said, but we need to manage confidentiality and donor agreements. Dr. Cole nodded. We will work with your legal team on confidentiality. Our goal is to find facts and make clear recommendations. We will start with the records now to understand patterns. Richard Hale, the chief financial officer, walked with Dr. Cole to a small conference room. He opened a file and began to explain entries as the reviewers asked questions. We shifted some funds to meet operating expenses, Richard said plainly. It was to cover payroll and vendor bills. I can show transfers and the dates. We believed it was short-term. One of the reviewers typed notes. Show the accounts designated for patient support, she said. We need to see how those funds moved. Meanwhile, nurses and other staff were told they would be interviewed. Maria Lopez, who had cared for the twins that night, met with a member of the review team in a quiet office. We will ask you about intake decisions and your experience this week, the reviewer said. We will protect your identity if you request it. Maria nodded. I will tell the truth, she said. I was worried about breaking policy. I also was worried about the babies. The reviewer smiled gently. We need facts. We will record what we hear. It will help the board and the community. In another part of the hospital, Susan met with legal counsel and board members. Her voice showed strain. We must be transparent, she said. If the audit finds mistakes, we will face criticism. We also need to keep the hospital running. Donors are nervous, and our line of credit may be affected. Elena Torres, the board member who had pushed for the exception, spoke up. Transparency will help restore trust. We need to accept the results and act. We also need to repair systems that left these infants at risk. A trustee on the call asked, "What if donors withdraw support?" Elena replied, "Then we will ask the community for help. Marcus has offered funding. We will also form a community advisory board so the neighborhood has a voice." Marcus met with Elena in a small conference area. He set his phone down and looked at her. "I do not want to run the hospital," he said. "I will fund the audit and a community fund to help families with gaps. I want oversight, not control. I want nurses and community members on an advisory board." Elena nodded. "That is what the hospital needs. We will draft terms for a community advisory board that includes staff and residents. We will ask the new monitor to recommend members." Marcus folded his hands. "And we will create a community fund to pay for urgent care gaps so no family gets turned away. I will put initial money in it. We will set rules and public reporting." They spoke about details of the fund. Who would manage it? How would families apply? How would the funds be audited? The conversation was practical and focused on steps. At the bedside, Dr. Kim explained the medical plan to Tiana. "We will watch the twins for at least 24 hours, she said. "We will check labs and keep the IVs for fluids. If they respond well, we will discharge them with a follow-up plan. Social work will help with appointments and legal steps." Tiana listened and nodded. "Who will help me at home?" she asked. Angela answered, "A nurse from the outpatient clinic will visit after discharge. We will arrange home support and connect you with a community program that helps young caregivers." A city health official called the hospital. The director of community health in Boston, a man named Mark Rivera, asked to meet. "We are following the situation," Mark said when he arrived. "We want to ensure patients get care and that policies change to prevent this from happening again. The city will offer guidance and support where we can." Susan met with Mark and explained the steps being taken. "We have agreed to an independent review and we will form a community advisory board," she said. "We will also train staff on emergency intake exceptions." Mark nodded. "The city will monitor progress. We will publish guidelines for emergency intake and community engagement. Hospitals must not let paperwork prevent urgent care." News crews began to cover the story in the morning. David Reed from the paper wrote about the twins and the hospital's vote. The report included quotes from Marcus and from Dr. Kim. The story reached many in the neighborhood and raised strong reactions. Some donors called the hospital with concerns. "We need assurances that our gifts are used properly," one donor said. "We will review our support." Others reached out to offer help. A neighborhood foundation called and asked how it could support the community fund. Marcus took notes and set up meetings. Inside the hospital, staff training began. Nurse educators scheduled sessions to teach clinicians how to apply an emergency intake exception when a child needs care and paperwork is missing. "This training will explain the legal steps to document exceptions," a nurse educator said. "We will give staff clear forms and lines of approval. We will also train on how to protect staff who act to save lives." Maria attended one of the sessions. She felt relief in the training. "I want to know exactly what to do next time," she said. "I do not want to be scared to help a child." Dr. Kim led a small clinical round where nurses practiced triage scenarios. She explained signs of dehydration and when to start IV fluids. "We must act fast for infants," she said. "We must not wait for paperwork when a child is unstable." As the review team worked through records, they found patterns that needed closer attention. Dr. Cole and her colleagues requested additional documents from the finance office. They asked for board minutes and emails between executives and donors. "These records suggest there are repeated transfers that reduced funding for patient services," one reviewer said quietly to Dr. Cole. "We should follow the trail and interview the CFO and past finance staff." Dr. Cole made a list and scheduled interviews. She called Marcus and Elena to update them. "We will start with accounting entries and then move to interviews," she said. "If we find problems, we will document them clearly." Marcus felt the weight of that work. He had wanted to help the babies and to fix the system. Now the audit had begun and could reveal deeper failures. He sat at a small table with his lawyer and reviewed the agreement terms. They had written public reporting into the contract if significant findings appeared. Tiana walked the hospital halls with Angela and a nurse from the pediatric clinic. They planned follow-up visits and discussed how to get milk formula and diapers delivered to her grandmother's apartment. "I will help with transportation and with school," Angela said. "We will arrange meetings with your teachers so they know you have responsibilities at home." Tiana nodded. She felt tired, but she also felt a small strength. The babies slept during the day and their breathing sounded easier. By the end of the day, the review team had gathered many documents. Staff had been interviewed. Training sessions were scheduled. The community fund had a bank account in the process of opening. The city health department had confirmed it would monitor changes. Dr. Cole met with Susan and the executive team to summarize early findings. "We have documents that show transfers of funds away from accounts labeled for patient support," she said. "We will need to review more history and interview former staff. This is a complex task, but it is necessary." Susan drew a long breath and nodded. "Do your work," she said. "We will cooperate fully." Marcus looked at the list of documents the reviewers requested. He felt both fear and a sense of duty. The audit had begun. The next days would show whether the hospital's problems were small mistakes or something deeper. The work had moved from saving 2 infants to a wider push to fix how care reached families in need. Dr. Rebecca Cole closed her laptop and looked at Marcus and Elena. "We have enough to show a pattern?" she said. Her voice was calm. Marcus leaned forward. "What pattern?" Dr. Cole tapped a paper. "There are repeated transfers from the patient support account to general operations. The transfers happened across many months. Some were small, some were large. The records show fewer funds available for patient intake during the same months." Elena swallowed. "Can you prove that the transfers caused patient denial?" Dr. Cole nodded. "We can show that intake officers were told to delay certain non-emergency admissions when coverage could not be verified. We found emails and internal notes. We also found cases where exceptions were refused. We need to interview staff to build the timeline." Marcus set his jaw. "Do it! I want the facts. I want the truth known." Dr. Cole picked up a folder. "We will need interviews with finance staff, intake staff, legal and board minutes from the last 2 years. We will also need medical records for patients who were denied or delayed." Elena stood. "I will notify a small group of trustees who support this. We must act carefully." They left the conference room and walked down the hall together. The hospital smelled like coffee and cleaning solution. Staff passed by and looked after them. Some nodded. Many looked worried. In a small office, Maria Lopez sat across from a reviewer. Her hands were still from working the night shift. She kept her voice steady. "Tell me what you remember about the night the infants arrived," the reviewer asked. Maria took a breath. "I remember the babies were very hot. The doctor said they needed fluids if they did not respond. The receptionist said no without proof. I told the nurse manager. The nurse manager said to document everything. I am scared I might lose my job if I speak, but I will tell the truth." The reviewer slid a form across the table. "You can request confidentiality. We will record your statement. We need dates, times, and names if you can give them." Maria nodded and began to speak. She described the calls, the refusal at the desk, and the way staff tried to help in the lobby. She spoke of notes placed in files and a policy memo she had once seen. Down the hall, Dr. Laura Kim gathered patient charts. She spread them on a table and pointed to notes to a junior doctor. "Look here," she said. This chart shows 2 infants with high fevers who were told to wait for coverage. The triage note is clear. The timestamp shows the delay." The junior doctor frowned. "We need to document the delays and the medical risks." Dr. Kim closed her eyes for a second. We will. I will write a formal statement. I will sign it. We need the reviewers to have the medical evidence. In another room, Angela Foster met with Tiana. A young woman named Rosa sat with them. She was from a youth advocacy group in Boston. "Hi, Tiana," Rosa said. "I am here to help you prepare if you want to speak. Many young caregivers talk about fear and about being ignored. You can tell your story in plain words." Tiana hugged her small bag and looked at the two women. "I do not like speaking in front of people," she said. "I am scared. But I want my brothers to be safe. If saying things helps, I will try." Angela smiled. "You can say what you feel. Tell them the facts. Tell them what you felt in the lobby. Tell them you were trying to keep the babies alive." Rosa handed Tiana a small paper. "Say it loud enough that people hear the truth. We will stand with you so you are not alone." Tiana practiced with a soft voice. "I ran to St. Mark's because they were burning with fever. The receptionist said no. I held them. I was scared. I do not want this to happen to other kids." Rosa and Angela nodded. "That is good," Rosa said. "We will help you make your words clear. We will also prepare you if reporters ask questions." Marcus and James Cole, his lawyer, sat at a table and went over the auditor's request list. James pointed to items and explained them simply. "We need access agreements," James said. "We will sign an engagement letter that gives the firm authority to look at records. We will require confidentiality for donors when allowed. But if we find wrongdoing that harms patients, we will make findings public." Marcus nodded. "I am ready. I want the facts on the table. I will fund this. I will not let it be buried." James repeated, "If we go public with findings, we must have solid evidence. That protects us and the staff who speak up." Meanwhile, in a conference room, Susan met with the hospital's legal counsel and a small group of trustees. The mood was tense. "We must prepare a defense," Susan said. "If the review shows mistakes, we need to show steps we took tonight to protect patients. We must also prepare a communication plan for donors and city officials." A trustee asked, "Do we have a list of cases where patient intake was delayed? Can we show that rules were followed as written?" Richard Hale, the CFO, shifted in his seat. "The records show transfers." "I can explain the entries. I believe the transfers were temporary. I did not intend to harm patient services. I should have reported it. I will cooperate fully." Susan looked at Richard. "We need full cooperation from finance. No more surprises." Outside the hospital, community leaders gathered at a local church. Elena and Marcus joined them. People from neighborhood groups, a community foundation, and a youth nonprofit sat around folding chairs. "We will ask for a public hearing at St. Mark's," Elena told the group. "We want to hear the audit findings in public. We want a new advisory board that includes residents and nurses." A man from the community foundation spoke. "We will help fund the community advisory board. We want transparency and long-term oversight." A woman who worked at a neighborhood clinic said, "We will bring patient stories to the hearing. We will show how policies hurt families." David Reed from the paper called Marcus that afternoon. "If you arrange a hearing, I will cover it," he said. "The city will want to know. Families will read about this." Marcus answered, "We will prepare documents first. Then we will set a public hearing. We want the audit's findings in front of the board and the city." Back at St. Mark's, Dr. Cole and her team interviewed the CFO and then some former finance staff. A former accountant who had left months earlier came in to speak. "I was told to move funds to meet payroll," the former accountant said. "They said it was temporary, but we were not told how long. I asked about it and I was told not to worry." The reviewer made notes. "We will need your written statement and any emails you have." The former accountant left with a small envelope. Her hand shook a little as she walked to her car. She had left the hospital after a disagreement. Now she hoped the process would be fair. In a quiet corner, a small group of nurses met in private. They worried about retaliation. Maria listened to her colleagues. "If they find problems and the hospital punishes staff, we will lose the people who keep this place running," one nurse said. Maria replied, "If we keep quiet and children are harmed, we will live with that. We must speak. We must ask for protection from retaliation in the audit report." Dr. Kim joined the group and placed a hand on Maria's shoulder. "I will support your statements. I will be part of the medical testimony. We will focus on facts. We will show the clinical risks." The review team worked long into the evening. Dr. Cole met with Marcus and Elena again and handed them a draft document. "This is a key summary," she said. "It links the transfers and the intake policy to cases where care was delayed. It is not the final report, but it is ready to present at a public hearing if you decide to do so." Marcus took the paper with both hands. He read a sentence and felt it as a weight in his chest. He looked up at Elena. "We should present this at the hearing," Elena said. "The community needs to see the facts." Marcus closed his eyes for a second. "We must be sure," he said. "We will ask Dr. Cole to finish the interviews and finalize the document. Then we will schedule the hearing for the board and the city." Dr. Cole added, "We will also prepare witness statements and a timeline. We will make a clear request, accountability, and a plan to protect patients." Tiana practiced her short speech again with Rosa. Her voice was stronger now. "I do not want other children to wait," she said. "We need rules that let doctors help first." Rosa hugged her hand. "You will not be alone," Rosa said. At the end of the day, Marcus left the hospital for a short walk. He thought of the families that had called him over the years. He thought of his niece who had died when care came too late. He felt a duty he could not ignore. Inside, the review team finished its day and locked the conference room door. Papers were stacked. Interviews were scheduled for the next day. The draft key document sat on the table with Dr. Cole's pen beside it. The next day would bring more interviews, more testimony, and a decision about a public hearing. The hospital waited. The city watched. The people who had spoken up prepared to tell what they had seen. The conference room filled with people and cameras. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. Chairs were full. A long table sat in the middle. The independent review team, board members, hospital leaders, reporters, and community members took their seats. Outside, a small crowd waited at the hospital doors. Dr. Rebecca Cole stood and opened a folder. She looked at Marcus and Elena. Then she faced the room. "We will present our findings," she said. "We will show documents and witness statements. We will speak clearly about what we found." A camera light clicked on. A reporter said, "Please speak slowly. The public will follow this." Dr. Cole nodded. "We will start with the financial records," she said. "Then we will show the timeline of intake decisions. We will finish with recommendations." Marcus sat near Elena. He had his hands folded. He kept his voice low. "We want facts. We want care for patients. We want a public report that leads to change." A trustee at the table asked, "Is this report ready for public release?" Dr. Cole answered, "Yes. We will read key findings. We will provide the full report to the board and to the public." Susan Price straightened in her seat. Her face was tight. Richard Hale, the CFO, sat beside her. He watched the papers Dr. Cole placed on the table. Dr. Cole began. She showed a chart on a screen. The chart had dates and account names and transfers. She spoke slowly. "These are transfers from accounts labeled for patient support to the operating account," she said. "They occurred across 2 years. The transfers reduced funds that should have supported patient intake and uninsured care." A reporter raised a hand. "Can you show examples?" Dr. Cole nodded and pointed to the screen. "Here is a transfer from March of last year. Here is another from November. These are not single actions, they repeat in many months," someone in the room whispered. Marcus watched the faces around the table. Some looked shocked, some looked angry. Dr. Cole continued, "We found emails from finance to intake that asked staff to limit admissions if coverage could not be verified. We found memos that said admissions were a cost driver and needed tighter control." A nurse in the front row stood up. It was Maria Lopez. She asked to speak. The review team agreed. Maria walked slowly to the microphone. "I worked the night the twins came to the lobby," she said. "My notes show a request for an emergency exception. I saw the receptionist deny care because of missing proof. I felt scared. I wrote what I saw on the chart." She paused. Her voice trembled for a second. "I help people every day. I followed orders and I also tried to help. That night I gave fever medicine and I watched the babies. I am here to say that staff tried to care, but rules made it hard." The room was silent. A reporter scribbled, "Doctor." Kim stood and walked to the microphone. She had her white coat on. Her voice was calm. "I was the pediatrician on duty," Dr. Kim said. "I recommended immediate admission if the twins did not respond to initial treatment. I wrote notes that said they needed observation for dehydration. The intake desk delayed the formal admission until a signed exception was approved." A board member asked, "Why did you not admit them without approval?" Dr. Kim answered, "We needed authorization for a full pediatric bed. We started care in triage. We documented everything. The policy required an executive sign-off for non-covered admission. That slowed the step to a pediatric unit." A woman in the public gallery raised her hand. She was a neighbor from Dorchester. "How many patients does this affect?" she asked. "Is this only about 2 infants?" Dr. Cole looked at the woman. "We found multiple cases where admissions were delayed or refused when coverage was missing," she said. "We will include a list of cases with dates in the final report." Richard Hale stood to defend his actions. His voice was measured. "I moved funds to cover payroll when the hospital faced cash shortfalls," he said. "My intent was to keep the hospital operating. I believed it was temporary and that we would restore funds. I did not want to harm patient care. I accept responsibility." Marcus raised his hand. "Responsibility is not enough if patients were harmed," he said. "We need action and change." A reporter asked Richard, "Did you tell the board about these transfers?" Richard looked down. "I did not make the full disclosure I should have made," he said. "I kept the transfers in regular reports, but I did not highlight the effect on patient support. I regret that." Susan stood and spoke. Her voice was quiet. "I was responsible for operations," she said. "I did not know the full details of these transfers. I relied on the finance team to be transparent. I am sorry for the stress this caused. We will cooperate with the audit, and we will follow the recommendations." People in the room reacted. Some nodded. Some made notes. A trustee asked, "Do the records show that exceptions were refused because of budget guidance?" Dr. Cole answered, "Yes. We found internal emails that advised limiting admissions. We found memos that prioritized financial stability over certain kinds of non-emergency intake when proof was missing." The room grew louder. Reporters asked more questions. Community members in the gallery stood and called for immediate action. Marcus spoke again. "This hospital has a duty to serve the community," he said. "We will fund a community advisory board. We will fund care for urgent gaps through a community fund. We will publish the audit results." Elena spoke up. "We must protect staff who speak truth. We will include anti-retaliation measures in the board's plan." At that moment, a legal representative for a major donor stood and spoke. "Our foundation gave funds to the hospital for specific programs," she said. "We are disappointed. We will review our support. We want strong steps to ensure funds go to patient care." Another donor on the phone declared they would pause a planned gift until the hospital showed a clear plan for reform. Marcus listened and then turned back to the board. "If donors pull, we will still need the hospital to work for the community. We will help with a community fund to cover emergency gaps while the hospital fixes policy." Then came the time for questions to the CFO. A trustee asked, "Were these transfers known to your auditors?" Richard answered, "Auditors look at end-of-year statements. They saw transfers. They asked for notes. We had explanations. But I did not provide the full context of how funds moved during the year. A woman from the city health department asked, "What steps will you take to ensure this does not happen again?" Susan replied, "We will accept the report's recommendations. We will create emergency intake exceptions, strengthen documentation, and set up an independent monitor. We will include community representation." Dr. Cole handed the board a clear list of recommendations. She read them aloud one by one. First, restore funds to patient support and report the plan publicly. Second, create a formal emergency intake exception with clear steps for staff. Third, form an independent monitor and a community advisory board. Fourth, protect staff from retaliation. Fifth, schedule regular audits and public reports. The recommendations landed in the room like decisions. Some board members looked relieved, some looked worried. Now it was time for witnesses from the community. Rosa, the youth advocate, stepped to the microphone with Tiana. Tiana held the twins' small blanket. Her voice was small but clear. "I am Tiana," she said. "I am 13 years old. I took my brothers to St. Mark's because they were sick. I held them in the lobby. The receptionist said no because of paperwork. I was scared. I do not want other kids to feel that fear." A reporter asked, "What do you want the hospital to do?" Tiana looked up. "I want doctors to help first. I want papers later. I want rules that let kids get care." People in the room watched Tiana. Her words were plain and direct. Some in the gallery wiped their eyes. Marcus put his hand over his face for a moment. The board then held a vote on immediate changes. The trustees spoke one by one. Some asked for more time. Some said the community could not wait. Daniel Reed, a trustee who supported action, said, "We must act now. The audit shows problems. We will accept the recommendations and begin reforms." Harold Dunn, who had opposed public pressure earlier, spoke last. "I worry about donors and credit," he said, "but I cannot stand in the way if patients were harmed." When the vote finished, a majority approved the key measures. They voted to adopt the independent review recommendations. They voted to create a community advisory board. They voted to set emergency intake exceptions that doctors could use when a patient needed urgent care and proof was not available. They voted to begin restoring funds to patient support. Susan sat down. Her hands trembled slightly. She stood and faced the room. "I accept the board's decision," she said. "I will cooperate with the monitor. I will work with the trustees to repair trust. I resign as CEO, effective immediately." The room reacted. Some gasped, others nodded. Susan's face was steady. She had made the choice and the board had accepted it. Outside the conference room, cameras flashed. Reporters rushed to record statements. Marcus stepped to a microphone. "We asked for facts," he said. "We got them. Now we will work with the hospital and the community to fix the problems. We will make sure no child is turned away for lack of papers." Dr. Kim shook Maria's hand. "Thank you for speaking," she said. Maria nodded. Tiana left the room with Angela and Rosa. She held the twins close. She walked slowly down the corridor and into the bright morning light. People in the hall watched her go. The hearing had ended. The hospital had voted to change. The next steps would be hard. The city and the community would watch. The babies were safe now. The work to fix the system had begun. The crowd left the hospital steps slowly. Inside, the boardroom emptied. The changes voted on were now a list to follow. People moved into new tasks. Marcus stood by the lobby window. Elena came to him with a folder. "We have to set the advisory board," she said. "We need people from the neighborhood, nurses, and patient advocates." Marcus nodded. "I do not want control," he said. "I want public oversight. Pick people who will speak for the community." Elena read aloud from the paper, "We will ask Maria Lopez from nursing. We will ask a representative from the neighborhood clinic. We will ask Rosa from the youth group and a parent who uses the hospital. We will also ask 2 trustees who support reform." Marcus looked at Elena. "Make sure the board is public and meets monthly," he said. "They must have real power to review policies." Elena closed the folder. "We will start interviews next week." Dr. Laura Kim walked through the pediatric unit. The twins lay in a small crib. They were calmer. Their faces were less red. A monitor showed slower numbers. A nurse checked a chart. "How are they doing?" Dr. Kim asked. "Their fevers are down," Maria said. "They are feeding more. Labs look better." Tiana sat in a small chair beside the crib. She had washed her face and changed clothes. She looked tired but alert. "Do you feel ready to take them home soon?" Dr. Kim asked. Tiana put a finger on the baby's blankets. "Yes," she said. "I will feed them. I will do everything the nurse tells me." Angela, the social worker, sat across from them. "We started the temporary guardianship paperwork this morning," she said. "A lawyer from legal aid will meet you at 11 o'clock in the morning to finalize forms for now." Tiana looked up. "Will child services be involved?" she asked. Angela shook her head. "Child services will only help. They will not take the babies away. We want to support you so you can keep caring for them." Later, Tiana met with a lawyer named Sarah Green in a quiet room. Sarah spoke slowly. "We will file for temporary guardianship so the hospital can release the babies to you," she said. "We will also begin the process to get permanent custody steps if your grandmother approves. You did everything right by getting them here." Tiana breathed out. "I am worried about school," she said. "I cannot miss too much." Sarah wrote a note. "We will contact your school today. We will ask for support and schedule meetings. You will keep caring for the babies, and the school will help with missed work." In a small conference room, Dr. Rebecca Cole met with Richard Hale, the chief financial officer, and with 2 reviewers. Papers and spreadsheets lay on the table. "We will start weekly reports," Dr. Cole said. "We need access to board minutes, donor gifts, and budget transfers. We will check entries going back 2 years." Richard looked tired but cooperative. "We will give you everything you need," he said. "We will also draft a plan to restore funds to patient support accounts." One reviewer asked, "How fast can you restore the funds?" Richard thought a moment. "We can start with a public plan in 2 weeks," he said. "We will identify funds to move back. It will require board approval and new donor agreements." Downstairs, a donor called the hospital. "We expect clear steps," the donor said. "We will pause our gift until we see change." Susan Price, who had resigned, answered the phone in a small office. Her voice was calm. "I accept responsibility for what happened," she said. "I will cooperate with any inquiry. The board has voted for reform. I will help with the transition." The donor listened. "We will review the plan," the donor said. "We want to support hospitals that protect patients." A news report ran on the local channel. It showed parts of the hearing and quotes from Dr. Cole. It discussed the hospital's agreement to change policy and to form an advisory board. The story spread in messages and online. Marcus sat with James Cole, his lawyer. James had prepared the escrow agreement and the audit payment. "We will deposit the funds into a public account," James said. "The auditors will be paid from it. You will have receipts and public reports." Marcus nodded. "Make sure the fund is separate from hospital control," he said. "We will have trustees from the community manage the community fund." At the hospital, staff gathered for new training. A nurse educator stood at the front of a small meeting room. "These sessions teach staff how to apply the emergency intake exception," she said. "If a child needs care and paperwork is missing, staff must follow the clinical steps first. Then they must document the decision and notify the on-call executive." Maria raised her hand. "What protects staff who make exceptions?" she asked. The educator pointed to a slide. "We will include anti-retaliation language. Staff who follow the policy will be protected. The independent monitor will review any complaint of retaliation." Nurses talked after the session. "I'm glad we will have clear steps," one nurse said. I felt scared before. Now I know what to do." In a separate meeting, Marcus met city officials. Mark Rivera from the City Health Department spoke about support. "The city will publish guidance for emergency intake exceptions," Mark said. "We will help hospitals adopt clear rules. We will also set a hotline for patients who feel denied." Marcus looked at Mark. "That will help," he said. "We will work with the city and with community groups." Elena joined them and added, "We will name members for the advisory board this week. We will include residents and nurses." Back in the pediatric unit, Dr. Kim met with Angela and with a nurse from the outpatient clinic. "We need to plan home support," she said. "A visiting nurse can come to Tiana's home after discharge to help with feeding and medication." Angela wrote a list. "We will arrange a formula delivery and a check on the grandmother's health. We will also schedule follow-up visits at the clinic." Tiana listened and then asked, "Will I be paid if I miss work at the bakery?" Angela nodded. "We will talk to your employer," she said. "You have rights as a minor and as a caregiver. We will work with the non-profit partners to help with food and diapers." Outside the hospital, the Community Advisory Board held its first meeting in a small church hall. Marcus, Elena, Maria, Rosa, and 2 community members sat at a table. "We will set simple rules," Rosa said. "We will ask for monthly reports, and we will meet with the hospital leaders every month." Maria spoke. "We want to see intake numbers and complaints," she said. "We want staff training logs and budgets for patient support." A community member asked, "How will the board have power?" Elena answered, "We will make the advisory board part of the hospital's governance documents. We will have the right to request audits and to present to the trustees." Marcus added, "We will fund the community board at first, but the hospital must include community members in future decisions." At the finance office, Richard met with an external banker. "We need time to restore trust," Richard said. "We have a plan to restore funds for patient support." The banker asked, "Will you accept a monitor for the next year?" Richard nodded. "Yes, we will work with the independent monitor and with city oversight." The hospital began to draft new policies. The legal team wrote a clear emergency intake exception form. It said that when a clinician finds urgent need, the clinician may begin treatment. The form required documentation, a nurse witness, and notification to the on-call executive within a set time. Marcus reviewed early drafts and said, "This looks good. Make sure it is simple and clear." Some donors returned after seeing the public plan. Others remained distant. The hospital felt the strain. The staff felt the pressure. But the steps moved forward. In the pediatric unit, the twins' diapers changed. They fed and then slept. Tiana watched them with small smiles. "Tomorrow we will try to go home," Dr. Kim said. "We will give you a plan and teach you everything you need to do." Tiana's eyes filled. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I will keep them safe." That evening, Marcus walked outside to the small garden near the hospital entrance. Elena joined him. "Will this change last?" she asked. Marcus looked at the hospital building and said, "It will take time. People will watch. We will make reports public and keep pressure. But it will take steady work from many people." Elena touched his arm. "We will keep working," she said. "The community will not let this slip." Inside the hospital, nurses finished another training. Dr. Kim closed the chart for the night. Maria checked one more time on the twins and then left the room. Tiana held both babies close. Outside, news reports quieted for the night. The city and the hospital had work ahead. The twins slept. Tiana rested a little while holding them. The new plans were now tasks to do. The hospital had accepted change and promised to act. People would now watch how they kept that promise. 3 months later, the twins smiled in the small exam room at St. Mark's. Their cheeks were round. They reached for a soft toy and cooed. Dr. Laura Kim smiled and checked the chart. "They are growing well," she said. "Their weight is good. Their temperatures have been normal." Tiana sat in the chair and rocked one baby. She looked tired but happy. Her coat was clean. Her voice was steady. "How long until we stop coming every week?" she asked. Dr. Kim looked at the paper and then at the babies. "We will do another follow-up in 2 weeks," she said. "If everything stays stable, we will move to monthly visits. You are doing a good job feeding and following the plan." Tiana took a small breath. "I almost did not come the first night," she said. "I was scared. But you and the nurses helped. I want to thank you." Dr. Kim reached out and touched Tiana's hand. "You saved them by bringing them in," she said. "You are strong and careful. You should keep going to school, too. We will work with you on that." Later, Angela Foster, the social worker, walked with Tiana to meet a lawyer from legal aid. They sat at a table in the pediatric clinic. "Your temporary guardianship papers are ready," the lawyer said. "We can file for longer custody if your grandmother agrees. After that, we will make sure you have legal rights to make medical decisions." Tiana nodded. "My grandmother will sign," she said. "She wants the babies to stay with me. She says she cannot care for them all day." Angela added, "We will help with transportation to school and with a small stipend from the community fund so you can keep working at the bakery part-time." Tiana looked down and then smiled. "That will help," she said. Across the hospital, Marcus Bennett met with the Community Advisory Board in a small conference room. The board had a simple table and many chairs. Maria Lopez sat beside Rosa from the youth group. Elena Torres opened a binder. "Today we will review the first monthly report from the Independent Monitor," Elena said. "We need to see progress on emergency intake rules and on fund restoration." Marcus read the report. "The monitor shows training sessions have started," he said. "They show staff are using the new emergency intake exception form. They also show that patient support funds have begun to be restored." Maria raised a hand. "We still need more training in the outpatient clinics," she said. "Some clinics do not yet know the steps. We see families who are afraid to come because of paperwork." A community member named James spoke. "We should publish a simple flyer in neighborhood centers and laundromats. Tell people that if a child is sick, hospitals will act first and document later." Rosa added, "We should also have community liaisons who can help families at the hospital doors." Marcus nodded. "We will fund the liaisons with the community fund. We will train them to explain the rules and to help people find services." A young nurse named Sarah joined the meeting by video call. "We need to track how many times the emergency exception is used," she said. "That will help us see if the policy works." Elena wrote notes. "We will ask the monitor to include that in the monthly public report." Outside the hospital, the city health department called a meeting at the city office. Mark Rivera, the director of community health, led the meeting. "We will publish city guidance this week," he said. "We recommend all hospitals adopt a simple emergency intake rule that lets clinicians start care when a patient is unstable and when documentation is missing." A city council staff member spoke. "We will help circulate the guidance and connect hospitals with training funds." Mark added, "We will also track complaints and publish quarterly reports so the public can see progress." At St. Mark's, staff training continued. A nurse educator led a session with a room full of nurses and intake clerks. When a child arrives with urgent need and paperwork is missing, the clinician should start care, the educator said. Then staff must complete the emergency exception form and notify the on-call executive, document everything and place the form in the chart. A man in the back raised his hand. "What if a donor questions a use of funds?" he asked. The educator answered, "We record the use and report it to the finance office. The independent monitor reviews the records. The Community Advisory Board will also see the report." Maria spoke after the session. "I feel safer now," she said. "I know the steps. I know the hospital supports us if we do the right thing." In the finance office, Richard Hale met with an auditor from the independent firm. They sat with spreadsheets and a list of transfers. "We have started restoring funds to patient support accounts," Richard said. "We made the first transfers last week. We will publish a plan that shows how we will return funds over 3 months." The auditor nodded. We will include that in our next public update. We will also verify that funds are used for care gaps and patient support." Richard looked tired but steady. "We will answer any questions from donors. We will work to rebuild trust." At the Community Advisory Board, Marcus and Elena planned a public event at a neighborhood center. They invited city officials, hospital staff, and community leaders. "We want to show the city the hospital's new policies and the community fund," Marcus said. "We also want Tiana to speak about what happened. She can tell the story simply. People will listen to her." Tiana practiced a short speech with Rosa. She held one twin on her lap and fed him a bottle. Her voice was soft but clear. "I want to thank the doctor and the nurses," Tiana said. "I want to tell parents that if your child is sick, go to the hospital. Please do not wait. Doctors will help you even if you do not have papers." Rosa clapped quietly. "You will do great," she said. "We will stand with you on stage." On the day of the community event, the room in the neighborhood center filled with families. Marcus spoke first. "We started a community fund to help families who cannot pay for urgent care," he said. "The fund is public. It has trustees from the neighborhood. We will publish how the money is used." A trustee from the foundation spoke. "We will support the fund and help families with formula and transportation." Dr. Kim stood and spoke about clinical rules. "We trained staff to act when a child is unstable," she said. "We changed the policy so care comes first. We also added clear steps to document exceptions." Tiana took the microphone. She held both babies and looked at the crowd. "When my brothers were sick, I was scared," she said. "They were hot and crying. I ran to St. Mark's. A lady at the desk said she needed papers. I held them and I prayed. Dr. Kim helped. The nurses helped. Now I want other kids to get care fast." A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. People around her nodded. Marcus stood and watched Tiana. He felt a quiet relief. After the event, reporters asked Marcus about the hospital changes. "Will you stay involved?" a reporter asked. Marcus replied, "I will stay involved with the community fund and the advisory board. I will not run the hospital. I will hold leaders accountable, and I will help the community protect its families." In the weeks that followed, the Independent Monitor published monthly reports. They showed training numbers, the number of emergency exceptions used, and steps to restore funds. The reports were public on the hospital website. Some donors returned and asked for regular meetings. Some remained cautious. The hospital named a new interim CEO, and the board began a search for a permanent leader with a record of community work. Tiana went back to school in Dorchester. She met with a guidance counselor who helped her catch up on classes. She worked at the bakery 3 afternoons a week. She kept the twins with her grandmother during school hours and had help from a visiting nurse. At St. Mark's, Dr. Kim taught a new class for pediatric residents. She explained signs of dehydration in infants and the steps to start care without delay. "Act first when a child is at risk," she told the room. "Document the decision. Notify your team. Protect the patient and protect the staff who help." Maria joined the Community Advisory Board and spoke at meetings about staff needs. She pushed for more training hours and for a hotline that staff could use if they feared retaliation. 1 year after the lobby night, the babies walked a little and laughed at new toys. Tiana sat with them on a small bench in a park. She had a school book in her bag and a list of appointments for the week. A message came to her phone. It was from Angela. "Your guardianship is finalized," the message said. "You have rights and support." Tiana breathed out and smiled. She fed the twins a snack and then looked up at the sky. Marcus visited the park and sat with Tiana for a short while. He asked, "How are you doing with school?" Tiana shrugged a little. "It is hard, but I am keeping up," she said. "The school gave me time to do homework. The community fund helped pay for a babysitter when I had tests." Marcus nodded. "You are doing a lot. We will keep supporting you." Tiana looked at the twins and then at Marcus. "Thank you for not giving up," she said. Marcus reached out and touched one twin's small hand. "You did the work," he said. "You brought them to the hospital. You kept them safe." The city and the hospital kept publishing reports. The Community Advisory Board met monthly. The independent monitor continued regular audits. Staff talked about the new rules and how to follow them. The change was not finished. The work continued. But the small lives in Tiana's arms were healthy and growing. The hospital had new plans and new steps. The community stayed involved and kept watching. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.